Doing part 2 of some old recordings on a reel-to-reel tape machine from 1965 of a band that I used to play in. This band was called the Beachcomber Trio in Columbus, Ohio. They played at the Kahiki restaurant, a very famous Polynesian restaurant back in the 60s and 70s, and they actually closed down in 2000, and the building was razed and they put a Walgreens drugstore there. It was actually a big controversy in the community because that restaurant had been there for so long, and it was just a great piece of architecture because it looked like a giant Polynesian lodge, the way they did it. It also had inside, and it was a very expensive restaurant, inside they had a aviary with tropical birds. One wall of the entire restaurant was a rainforest where it would rain and thunder behind this glass every 10 minutes or so. And on the other wall, for the entire wall of the restaurant, was a giant aquarium with tropical fish. It was a very amazing place. So anyway, there was a DJ in Ohio that found or knew the band leader, who's now about 90, and he was apparently getting ready to move to Idaho from Ohio, and he managed to get these tapes that he found from 1965 on reel-to-reel tapes, and so he put it together into a vinyl record, and he's selling those online, and he's being interviewed on a podcast that I'm going to play a little of today, and talks about the group and how he came about all this music from the 1965. So anyway, here's a little bit of that interview on the Quiet Village podcast from August, I think it's the beginning of August of 2010 this podcast was made. Here we go.
But first, I want to talk about one of the most exciting releases that has come along in quite a while. It is the Beachcomber Trio live at the Kahiki in Columbus, Ohio in 1965. Now, this is not a reissue of an LP that's been out of print. This is an actual brand new release that happens to be on LP, which is kind of exciting, of lost tapes. Those of you who've been following the podcast remember episodes 23 and 24, which was my rare vinyl episodes with Jeff Chenault. In the second episode, which was, I believe, 24, he actually debuted the song Yellowbird, which was from the Beachcomber Trio, recorded at the Kahiki. Jeff Chenault lives in Columbus, Ohio, where the Kahiki used to be. Sadly, it was tore down and is now a Walgreens, unfortunately. But Jeff knew one of the members of the Beachcomber Trio who still lived in Columbus, Ohio, Marsh Padilla. And one day he found these master tapes in Marsh's house, I believe in his closet. Turns out all of these reel-to-reel tapes were recorded live in the Kahiki while dinner was going on, while patrons were there. And it was ultimately going to be an LP release of the Beachcomber Trio live at the Kahiki, but it was never released, and the tapes were put in the closet and forgotten. Jeff digitized those, and the result is this LP, which has just come out on Dionysus Records. One of the most exciting things about this recording, I think, is the fact that you can actually hear people talking and enjoying dinner and chatting and conversations going on in the background, because these recordings were actually made while there was dinner, while there were cocktails being served. It's the real deal. So here's the perfect track for the Quiet Village. This is a great tune, the Beachcomber Trio's version of Polynesian Spell.
Yeah, let me just add that this was a trio that played at a piano bar. And like I say, this was a very fancy restaurant, and the bar was like a hand-engraved copper kind of semicircle with engraved Polynesian-type symbols and stuff on it. And then the Tiki hut would go over the top of the three musicians there, and then people would sit around this bar while they were performing. And the entire restaurant building was like a giant Tiki ceremonial village house in the South Pacific. It was just an amazing place. So anyway, here's a bit of their music. Marsh Padilla, and I'm not sure who the other two musicians are, because I didn't join the band until several years later. But at least we know the leader, Marsh Padilla, is playing flute, electric bass, and piano, and then two other unknown musicians from 1965. Now, I almost suspect that the leader, Marsh Padilla, who's now playing the flute, was probably playing the timbales and the drums in that, because you could hear him put down the sticks, and then all of a sudden you heard the flute. So Marsh was probably playing the drums and then coming into this with the flute.
great. The Beachcomber Trio from the new LP live at the Kahiki 1965, produced by Jeff Chenault. I highly recommend this. I can't recommend this enough. This is a real slice of Americana, a real slice of the Tiki and Exotica past that essentially up until just, not too long ago was unknown, was completely lost, and now it has been released. You can actually put your headphones on and it sounds like you're sitting in front of the Kahiki Trio, the Beachcomber Trio at the Kahiki. It's wonderful. This LP is great. Beautiful cover. The back has a vintage photo of the Beachcomber Trio. It's got a write-up by Jeff Chenault. Wonderful write-up. The beauty of this as well, if you buy the LP, you also get a coupon with a secret code, I guess, that gives you a free download of a digital version of high-resolution MP3s of the entire album. So you don't have to digitize the LP or worry about that. You can download it for free and then put it in your iPod so you can take it with you. It is a wonderful release. It's done very well by Dionysus Records. Hats off to Jeff Chenault. We interviewed Jeff Chenault some time ago, and it was episode 24, I believe, of The Quiet Village. He actually debuted one of the songs that he found, the raw track, Yellowbird, which was a 5.5-minute version of Yellowbird. The LP version, it's been trimmed down to about 2.5 minutes or so, because it was just multiple solos over and over again. But The Quiet Village has the full-length version, folks. I'm quite happy about that. So hopefully we can get Jeff Chenault on board again for another interview and talk about this LP, which is wonderful.
And that was a podcast called The Quiet Village. They specialize in Exotica and Polynesian music from the 60s and 70s. And so again, that was a live recording from the Kahiki Polynesian restaurant in Columbus, Ohio in 1965. And a local guy had known about the leader of the band back then and got some reel-to-reel tapes and put them together into a vinyl record. And that was part of it, played on the podcast, The Quiet Village. So I hope you enjoyed that. I played in that band several years later and enjoyed it immensely. I was going to Ohio State at the time and went to school during the day and played drums at night. And then I graduated and continued playing there at night and got a job teaching high school music in New Albany, Ohio, and continued teaching music in the day and playing at night until I moved to Florida. So it's probably one of the best times of my life down there in the Kahiki Supper Club in Columbus, Ohio. They eventually tore the place down in 2000 and put up a Walgreens restaurant, but the Kahiki foods are now a line of frozen foods that you can get in supermarkets. So they still continue making Kahiki brand Polynesian foods in your supermarket freezer department, so that's kind of interesting. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'm Don Browne from La Belle, Florida. Talk to you next time.